So what the average modern person thinks of as success, the Sufi mystic calls descent, because the move away from God is a descent. Well, how do we start ascending? That's the second phase, the journey to God, and this marks the beginning of the ascent. We arrive at this juncture as the result of a change of some sort. It's a shift, maybe an occurrence, an event, even an epiphany, but something happens, and we experience a bit of awakening. We realize that there's something greater beyond us, and we are curious about it. We want to explore it. We want to know more about it. We're tired of the external validation, so we go looking for more. We think happiness has to be something grander than what we've experienced so far. And we sense that something deeper is calling, and we're ready to listen. We want to hear what it's all about. We see beyond our concept of individuality, of separation, and realizing that we're somehow connected to something that's bigger than we are. We want to find it. So we start searching. And the search is not bad, it's progress, because growth is progress. So we resolve to change. Maybe we start going to church, or we meditate. We make a conscious effort to love more, to be better people, to be kinder, to recycle and compost, to ride our bike to work. Different people do different things. It's about becoming more conscious. The point is that we do things. We undertake practices. And we expect to see results. We expect to see empirical results, proof, so that we can say to our friends, "Look at me, I'm spiritual now. Isn't this great?" We start to ponder divine qualities in ourselves. And when we do that, we start to see them in other people as well. And it feels really good. In the second journey, we are moving toward unity. But we're not there yet, because we're still searching. And this is a vast improvement over the first journey. Make no mistake, but it is by no means our ultimate destination. What is our ultimate destination? The third part, the journey in God. The Sufis call this fana, F-A-N-A, which suggests complete and total amalgamation of the soul in God. They describe it as a falling away of the individual self into the divine. That's not even the poetry part. So here, there is no search. We reach perfection without reaching for perfection. Big difference, because that perfection is already there. It always was. Our journey in God earns us the title perfect being. Now, in ancient times, they referred to it as perfect man, but because we're modern and progressive, we will call it perfect being. And having attained this level of awareness, realizing our divine identity, we're ready to re-enter the world. So now we live in the world, but we do not belong to it. The Sufi way dictates that when we return to the world as perfect being, having reified our divinity, it is incumbent upon us to serve humankind, to assist others on their way to God, to lift others up all around us. This is parallel to Ernest Holmes' admonition to practitioners of our teaching when we actualize truth. He writes, "We must be in the world, but not of it. We must help to lift up, but never compromise our truth. We must constantly and continually see the world through the eyes of spirit." See, the third journey is the real thing. It's not a rehearsal anymore. There's no searching, there's no seeking, there's no reaching, there's no trying. We absolutely live our truth right here and right now. We're no longer preparing it. We're being it. We are it. So let's look at the 3 journeys again briefly, but this time in terms of how we transition from one to the next. We know a little about what each one looks like, feels like, but how do we move from one to the other? From 1 to 2, and then 2 to 3. So again, the first journey represents our path from the moment of our perfect birth through our descent into the tangible world, the physical, objective world, which is also our moving away from unity to duality, our decline, if you will, from divinity to materiality. We move from this journey to the next either by way of our intuitive or our intellectual faculties, and maybe a little bit of both. But at any rate, what happens is that we somehow receive some enlightenment. The light of spirit makes its way into our awareness, and maybe it's a tiny ray creeping through a little crack, or maybe it's a lightning bolt that completely knocks us off our feet. I would say for most of us, it's somewhere between those 2 extremes. So we enter into stage 2, the journey to God. And as we noted earlier, this is the learning part, the practice, the acquiring indirect knowledge of God, the coming to know about Spirit. I would say this is where most of us probably are, in phase 2, the journey to God. And that's not a bad place to be. In fact, it's probably very, very comfortable here. We seek after divinity, and we find it everywhere in ourselves and everyone else around us. We go to lectures and workshops and classes. We read everything we can get our hands on, right? And many of us are very successful at applying what we learn. So life is good. In fact, life is probably better than ever before. But even so, we have a sense that there's more, that it could be deeper. Can I get a witness on that? Yeah. Okay. I'm certain every person here would benefit from moving closer to complete unification with Spirit. But how do we do that? When I think about how I would do that, I naturally start to examine where I am right now. And in doing this recently, I noticed something about myself that I don't particularly like. And it has to do with when I'm driving. What about you? How many of you abandon your spiritual path the minute you get behind the wheel of your car? So when I drive here to the center from my house on 880, I exit at Stevenson Boulevard, and I have to make a right-hand turn. There are 2 turn lanes that move to the right. One of them runs out quickly, so I always get in the leftmost lane because it brings me all the way to our parking lot. But there are all these idiots who don't understand if you're in the rightmost right lane, you have to stay there. And they don't. They shoot over. There's 4 lanes that move out of these 2. So I'll be on the exit ramp, and before I even put on my turn signal, it's like I am ready for the next person who's trying to cut over in my lane. This is my lane. It's taking me all the way to my destination. And even if I have to bump their fender, by God, they're going to stay in their place. And I create that every time. I did it this morning.